Good morning. I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Selectmen meeting for Monday, December 18th, 2017 to order. First order of business is Pledge of Allegiance. Charlie, would you do the favor, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Charlie. Item two, public forum. Limited to 3 minutes on any agenda item. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board in public forum? Hearing none, let's move on to item 3. That would be approved minutes. 3.1 is the December 4th, 2017 regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Comments, questions, changes, suggested changes, deletion? Any? I had none. Good.
Nope, good with me.
Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
3.2. This would be the minutes of the December 12th, 2017 special meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments, questions, Sarah? Deletions? I had none either. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Item 4. We are going to be considering taking action on 2 contracts. One is a contract with Johnson Controls for the energy performance contracting. The second would be award of financing for that energy performance contract. We have Cliff Gurnham, Aldo Mazzaferra, and Aaron Alibrio. Did I get that right, fellas? Not bad. Third time's a charm. You guys want to come up for just a quick minute? As much for those in the viewing audience of GCTV and anyone in the room who's concerned, for about 2 years, maybe 2 years, we've been considering an energy performance contract with ECG, our owner's, our consultant that the town engaged to walk through a process to vet out potential opportunities to enhance our energy production capabilities, upgrade certain components of those systems, and as a result, wind up with positive cash flow at the end of a 20-year arrangement. Gentlemen, we're at the end of a long run, and there have been multiple meetings, including information sessions conducted at the high school for Board of Education, Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance meetings. We've worked a great deal with particularly Cliff Gurnham on the school side because the bulk of the energy savings, and I think we've been using an 80-20 rule, will fall to the town. It includes upgrades to various control systems. It includes the installation of solar panels, a substantial number of solar panels, in addition to replacement of boilers and several other items. One of the additional benefits of this program, as I understand it, is it will allow us to avoid additional capital expenditures over the next several years. While we don't have a firm number on it, I believe at our special meeting last week, Cliff, you were talking almost a couple $1 million worth of capital projects over the next 5 years that will no longer be required. So entering into this 20-year agreement is something that we didn't do lightly. I know the Board of Education approved it at a 7-0 unanimous vote. It was also recommended to both the Board of Education and the Board of Selectmen by the Standing Building Committee. And I dare say that we did a little vetting of our own at the special meeting last week, and I think we satisfied the concerns that this board had. We did have a couple of questions that came up from that Mike Ailes forwarded along late yesterday. It was probably when the Giants were out of the game at that point, because I know he's a big Giants fan. We sent it at 3:30. Nonetheless, these questions, I think, I don't know what the board's feeling is. I think we've addressed several of these, so I think if you guys would provide some written response to this that we can forward along to the Board of Finance. It should be noted that the Board of Finance does not have to make a decision on this. However, having sat on that board for a few years and been through several presentations with you folks, it is beneficial to us to have their support. I think in large part we do, but these are some final questions. At this point, we have gone out for financing. We put an RFP on the street. This is a 20-year lease, a municipal lease finance plan. We had only one respondent, Bank of America, and the rate that they came back with was underneath the cap that Johnson Controls and ECG had put together, which I think you were at 2.99 to make this a cash flow positive arrangement. And I think it came in at 2.895. Am I correct?
Yes.
Good. Okay.
With a reduction related to electric savings.
Correct. So
2.689.
2.68. That's right. Thank you, Sue, for that correction. So, first I'd ask, are there any other questions that this board has?
I don't think so much questions, but I think we ought to put on a record, for the public regarding the performance bond. That was an important point of our discussion at the special meeting. I don't know if you want to expand on it or for the education of the public so that they understand that if the savings, who wants to describe it? Somebody want to describe what the bond is?
Let me take a quick shot at it as I understand it. First off, there are provisions in the contract with Johnson Controls that the estimated savings that they have projected for us will be met. If there are a shortfall, Johnson Controls will make up that shortfall against those projections throughout the life of the contract.
That's correct.
Correct. And then the second piece, which Sue and Charlie had been talking about last week, was Johnson Control is required to post a bond, a performance bond, in the amount of $11 million, which will protect the town and the Board of Education against default in any measure. Let's say, this is highly unlikely, 3 years from now, Johnson Controls goes out of business for some reason. We now have the ability to call that bond if they are no longer able to perform their services. Is that representation correct?
Yes.
Anything you want to add? No?
The only thing I'd like to, were you going to add about seeing at the reports clear?
No, different comment, but so you go first.
Right. Okay.
Well, I just want to add that part of that performance bond and the savings and everything else is that one of the requirements is that we, get to review. I don't know how to describe it. We're hoping to get a very clear understanding of what we're doing, cost and savings, just so that we get that on a regular basis, so that
The savings actually are.
right.
The sample report was sent around to you guys last week at our request. Thank you.
And Charlie, I think I let everyone know this individually at our meeting last week. It was decided we would ask Mike Frieda, the first selectman in North Haven, and North Haven took advantage of this program a couple of years ago. I had the opportunity to speak with Mike Frieda. He says they're about 18 months into the program. He was effusive in his praise for the program. They are realizing the savings they had, and the performance and the reports are coming on a consistent basis, so they're getting it. So.
My question was related back to the performance bond. The cost of that bond is being borne by Johnson Controls? That's correct.
Yes.
So that doesn't change the expenses to the town that have been presented already? Correct. Okay.
Any other further questions?
I don't think so.
No?
No? Sandy? Good? Good. Is there a motion to authorize the first selectman to sign on behalf of the town and the Board of Education a contract with Johnson Controls for the energy performance contracting?
I'd like to make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any further discussion? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
You got it. Thank you. Mary Jane, do you want to come up for this piece?
Is there a second motion on the financing piece?
I'm bringing Mary Jane up.
Okay.
Yeah. Mary Jane, do you want to? Yeah. 4.2, please.
Yes.
You want to come up, or are you okay right there? All right, item 4.2, consider and take possible action to award RFP number 2-1718, financing of the energy performance contract. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Any comments or questions beyond the fact that not Johnson, but Bank of America was the only respondent, and it came in below the thresholds that were required to make this a cash flow positive arrangement for the community. None? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Congratulations, gentlemen. And we look forward to working with you to improve our performance, our energy performance. In addition to, I think it's important to note, and we talked about this at our meeting, sort of setting the standard from your elected officials that green energy, particularly with the solar, is something that we need to invest in, and we are. So thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Item 5, Finance Director. Mary Jane. I thought I got rid of them. I thought I got rid of going through these reports. No, not you, not you.
Boy, first meeting and I'm already gone, okay.
Second meeting. We gave you
Second
one.
meeting,
We
that's
gave you
right,
one.
okay.
I thought I'd get rid of having to go through these on a monthly basis like I did on the Board of Finance, but I know better. Anything you'd like to bring to our attention?
First of all, before I get into my report, I just want to mention two things. We do have the five-year capital reports ready for you, and you'll have your packets at the end of the meeting. I'll hand them out. So, and that meeting is set for the 20th. The other thing is our audit is practically complete. It is in final review right now with Bloom Shapiro. I had hoped to have it for today. We're going to miss it by a day. I think I'm going to get my booklets tomorrow. But so that will be part of the presentation to the Board of Finance next month. And everything looks great in the audit. Shouldn't be any concerns to add. So everything is good.
Great. My congratulations to having gotten this completed in the time frame that is traditionally allowed for, because it will be filed by the 31st as well?
It will be filed by the 31st.
With the state.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. First time in a couple of years that that's happened, right?
I believe so.
We've traditionally asked for an extension, but congratulations on working through with Bloom Shapiro to make sure get that done on time.
That's my goal. Okay, so now we can look at those reports.
Revenue?
Revenues at this point are at 53.6% collected as compared to 53.4% last year. We are about 42% through the year. All of our revenues are coming in right where we expect them to be. Some of the items are coming in higher than last year, mainly just timing and depending on what projects are being done. But otherwise, there are no real concerns. As far as any of the individual budgets, tax collection running even higher than last year, mainly thanks to $8 million that came in early this year, so that helped that. And even with our state of Connecticut revenue lagging behind, we're still able to meet those projections. And we have received a number of our state funds in the month of December already, so you'll see that. So things are coming in just like the state had promised. We've gotten ECS, we've gotten municipal funding. So, but you'll see that with the December reports. So that's good news for us.
Any other questions? One thing on revenues, I want, and you and I have already discussed this, we want to take a look at the projected revenues by category from the state of Connecticut because of the adjustments in the budget that was passed, November? Whenever.
Right.
Latest in the country. Just category by category. I know overall we're fine, but
Right.
And that'll be part of our budget deliberation.
Okay, yeah, I actually have that available if anybody wants to look at that.
Copies later.
Maybe you could email it. Is that by category, what the actual?
It's all of it's the entire state revenue budget, including ECS, which we don't see it that way when you're presenting the budget, but I have all of those included in this particular presentation, just because we were following all of those categories.
That would be helpful.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'd probably spill it on it if I tried to drink it. So, expenditures.
Expenditures, similar story with the expenditures. Most of our departments are pretty much where they typically are at this time of the year. We are, on the town side, 54.8% spent compared to 54.9 last year, so we're right there, bottom line, with the Board of Ed, about 43% spent through the year at 42% into the year. So things are right on line, unless you have any particular questions on any line items.
Well, just one quick thing. 2 weeks in, and we have 3 storms already. So overtime at Public Works.
We won't see that
We
till
won't see
next-
that till next month. That's right. Anything else? Any questions? I had none. Anything further? Yes.
Medical benefits projection for this month. November, we had very low claims. There are some being held back due to some contracts that Anthem is having issues with, so there, but shouldn't be too much. So our claims are starting to come down. A lot of that is attributed to the HSA with the Board of Education. It's really the only reason that they could be coming down that far. Otherwise, our revenues are tracking right about where they should be, a little higher than we anticipate. We're looking for an estimated fund balance of $3.8 million.
So Mary Jane, in that statement, Anthem is a third-party administrator, so they're involved just solely to take the claims, process them, and then but the town maintains and pays the full expense, subject to a loss policy and
Correct.
excess stop loss, right?
Yes.
Just so anybody who's jumping in here for the first time sees this, and they hear you talking about Anthem. They're just there to administer the claim, not really pay the
Correct. We are
claims.
self-insured. They are our administrators. One thing I didn't mention, but you meant the catastrophic claims. We are at 164,000 at this point of catastrophic claims.
I always hate to ask this question, but are there any red flags in particular cases that look like they might hit the stop loss?
Yeah.
I know we did that 100.
Over and above what we have here.
Well, does 160 represent 1 or 10 claims?
4.
We know where we're going.
And typically, we've asked how many are at the 50% of the stop loss number.
That
It's still early.
I don't have that off the top of my head.
It's early.
Permits?
Anything else?
Nothing? No.
Unless you
Anything
have any
else?
questions on anything else there?
Thank you. 5.2, discuss and take possible action on resolution authorizing lease purchase finance agreement to finance energy performance contract subject to Board of Education approval at its meeting later today and send to the Planning and Zoning Commission for mandatory referral under Connecticut General Statute Section 8.24. So I think that would be authorizing the lease purchase agreement pending the Board of Education's approval this evening, correct?
Correct. They have it on their agenda for this evening. So this is very similar to what we do with the Board of Ed computer lease. And this documentation was produced by our bond counsel, and the procedures that we need to follow are similar to what we would do with debt, although it does not need to go to referendum as the lease purchase does not require that. So this resolution will authorize us to enter into the lease purchase agreement in order to finance the costs of the performance agreement that you just approved. What this also does is allows us to fund these projects through the lease, that the energy savings will then offset the payments that come through. One part we have to do in here is specifically appropriate a portion of the Board of Ed's budget in order to allow us to continue our arrangement with the Board of Ed. So you'll see in the second one that the 58 million is their current fiscal year budget, and we are appropriating a portion of that towards this project.
And why is that blank? Or do you know what
Yeah.
the amount is?
Thank you.
Was that?
Why is that left blank? Do you know what the amount is?
It is $500 at this point. I'm sorry, that's right, the one you have received. So, that's right, at the top, there was a comment about adding in the financing costs. You can cross that out. I have a clean copy here for you to sign. Cross out, we are not including the financing costs in the lease agreement. And bond counsel had recommended $500 in that blank line. Thank you for reminding me of that.
So, yeah, go ahead, Sue.
Oh, why are we not including the interest costs in the lease amount?
It's just typically what we normally haven't done in the history of using the leasing.
All right.
So
So the interest during that construction period, then, I didn't think that was included in the projections for the project. So where would that be paid from if it's not in the lease?
we would have to cover that.
Out of general fund?
Yes,
It-
that's all part of it'll all fall into the offset of the energy costs. But
Oh,
we're
will
only,
eventually.
but
That
we're
is
only
accommodate.
we're only borrowing through the lease the cost
For
of the projects.
Okay.
And is there going to be interest expense in this current budget that we're in now?
No.
Okay, so the $500 is really, in a sense, is a placeholder.
It's a placeholder, right. We need that in order to enforce the contract with the Board of Ed moving forward.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so the motion is to authorize the lease purchase financing agreement contingent upon the Board of Education's approval at a meeting later today. I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I had one more question, though.
Well, that's what this is for.
Okay, thank you.
And to send it to planning and zoning.
And to send it
has
to
go
planning and zoning, excuse me.
The amount that's projected to be financed, $9,526,355, is highlighted on the form that we have?
Bond counsel had put that in, they just needed us to confirm that number.
Okay, so that's the number, that's not
That
something
is the number. I have all the backup documentation that shows all of the projects. That does indeed total to that. The town portion is 1.7 million. Out of that, the rest is Board of Ed.
There's our 80-20 rule. Anything further?
No.
Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. 5.3, consider and take possible action on appointment of pension trustee. Mary Jane?
Within our pension documents, we have a resolution that calls for 3 pension trustees, one being the first selectman, the second being the board of the finance director, and a third is a designated member of the Guilford Board of Selectmen who is not a member of the same political party as the Guilford first selectman, then serving as trustee. So I am. It's very.
You guys want to rock, paper,
This-
scissors, shoot?
This is done in 2012.
You want to do-
Sure, I'll be glad to.
Would you? Sure.
Yes, of course.
I would
So-
recommend Susan Renner fill the third spot
Okay.
Is that a motion?
in a motion.
I'll second it.
Any further questions? You sure you want to do it? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I
Abstained?
have some paperwork
Recusals?
for you to fill out. I'll get that to you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Item 6, Chief Hutchinson, and is Commissioner Mickelay going to join you at the table, or you going to let him handle it himself? Is that the only place you can find a seat? It's probably the only place you can find a seat in here.
Good morning.
Good morning. Item 6.1 is discuss and take possible action to waive the bid requirements for the purchase of 3 new patrol vehicles, equipment, and uplifting from Crowley Ford. Give us just a little background. I'm assuming this is out of capital 2018 capital budget.
Correct. So this is out of capital. As the board knows or does not know, we replace cars periodically, annually that is, based on mileage. We need to replace 3 patrol cars. The vendor we're recommending came in at a lower price than the state contract price. And we've used that vendor in the past. Another advantage to this vendor is they take trade-ins on our other vehicles. So the other one doesn't. So By using Crowley Ford for the 3 vehicles, in addition to the $395 on the overall price, there's an additional trade value, which brings the savings between the state contracted price and this vendor to $9,695. So it's a no-brainer to us, and we were hoping, since the Police Commission approved it last Wednesday, that the Board of Selectmen would agree and recommend that we use Crowley Ford to purchase 3 police vehicles for a total price, including trade-in and credit costs, of $77,691.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, but I got a comment.
That's fine. Is there a second on the motion? Second. To approve?
The only
John?
point I wanted to make is just to expand that normally we just trade down the trade-in vehicles and other departments use them, but it just has gotten to the point where it would just be extra wood at this point.
Right, so procedurally, what we do is we contact the town garage and say, hey, these are the 3 vehicles we have, and we put it out to the town. Does anybody need one or want one? And if that were an option, which we do occasionally, we'll push them down to another town department. In this case, there was no need for, and the Ralph down at the Public Works said, we don't want these cars.
We've got
Is this the last Crown Victoria?
The last one.
last guy.
Last of an era, yeah, so we're, yeah.
At many levels.
Officer Dennison was assigned this car, and he wanted to take it with him when he retired. Couldn't let him do it. So maybe he can go down to wherever they're trading it and buy it.
Have we got a deal for him?
So secondly, when we purchase these vehicles, there's an upfit, and there was a typo in the agenda. It's uplift. It's not uplifting, although it is sometimes uplift. Uplifting,
Get a new
fit
car.
3 new cars. It's upfitting. Additionally, the state contract price versus the vendor we've been using for the last couple of years, Solai's Garage, we have a savings of $7,213 between what we would pay in the state contract price and using Solai's Garage. In addition to the price, they're closer. The servicing they've been providing us is superior to what we would get with the others. The other place is farther away. It takes us 2 officers to go drive a car up there for services. The Solai's Garage sends a rec route, picks it up, brings it back. So there's a lot of advantages to using Solai's in addition to the savings of $7,213. So we're recommending, as did the Police Commission, that we use Solai's Garage for the upfitting of the 3 vehicles.
Are we at the point of being able to transfer any of the equipment and then any trade-in vehicles?
Right, so if you look at the requisition, I don't know if that was provided to you, so you'll see there's only 2 light bars at this point, 1 console, 1 mount. We're switching over some of the cages inside. We have about 4 that are half cage. We've determined that a full cage has created some problems with, number 1, storage in the back of the car, number 2, the space for the officers driving the car. So when you have a full cage in the back, the seat can't go back very far. We have some officers that are 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", and they're driving a car like this. So with a half cage, for the prisoner, the driver's seat can actually move back a little bit. So it's a safety concern for the drivers. So as we rotate through the cars, we're starting to replace those as well.
Well, this is the first batch of SUVs.
This is the first batch that's getting traded in.
Recycled.
Correct. Yeah, so we've had them for a while now. These are
Because that was
2014s, I believe.
a substantial expense going from Crown Victorias to the SUVs.
Correct.
But now, hopefully, some of the equipment will be.
Right, you usually get 3 to
The
4
hard
years out of it. Yeah, the hard, the cages and the seats in the back. You have to put a formed plastic seat in the back so we can't hide things or drop things in the car. So.
Can I ask, what's the reason for the move from the Crown Vic style up to the utility vehicles?
They stopped making them.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Which will bring us to our next one. So look at that. Yeah, so they stopped making them and built this is a purpose-built vehicle. So when we say it's not necessarily an Explorer, it looks like the consumer-based Ford Explorer, but these are specifically police-built. The doors open wider, the space inside is higher, and the suspensions, the electronics are all different, but it looks like what you would see in the public as an Explorer. So.
Yeah, we went through that the first time we got the Explorer, and we had the same concerns that they were just Explorers, but they're not. They're the Ford's replacement
Call
for
it Ford
Crown
Utility
Victoria,
Police Interceptor.
built for a purpose. it was the first car that was built for the purpose, from my
I
understanding.
see.
Correct.
Thank you.
They seem to work.
They've been doing well for us. There's hiccups here and there with a new model, but they've been addressing it through warranty and repairs. So they've held up for us, and the gas mileage is way superior to the Crown Vics.
Really?
Yeah. Crown Vics had a big 5-liter, 8-cylinder. These are 6-cylinder vehicles, and about 3 to 3.5 miles per gallon better. And when we talk about the miles we're putting out, it's just a
Yeah,
significant
right.
difference.
Good. Makes sense.
Anything further? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? 6.2, consider and take possible action on an agreement for 5-year purchase plan to replace tasers.
As I mentioned before, when Selectman Renner asked why we stopped using the Crown Vics, the current tasers that we carry are a model that we've just been notified they're not going to make anymore. Not only are they not going to make it, they're not going to support it. So each of these tasers has holsters, batteries, consumables that we need to purchase each year for training, wear and tear. The tasers we currently have are anywhere between 7 to 10 years old, depending on which one we're talking about. Their normal life is 5 years, and we usually purchase them with a 5-year warranty. Because they've lasted us a little longer, we've budgeted in our operations budget for replacement of 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 per year, because when they break now, we can't get them fixed. So we will just buy new ones and replace them. Having been notified that they're no longer supporting or manufacturing these, Taser made proposals to all the agencies out there because it was a surprise, and I'm sure this is also an ability for them to lock in some long-term business, and they are the only game in town. So the proposal is that we would replace 33 tasers, because in our purchase plan previously, we've already got 6 of the new ones. Purchase 33 all at once on a 5-year purchase plan. The advantage to that plan is they come with all the consumables for that period of time, the batteries, the cartridges, the holsters. It comes with a 5-year warranty. The amount that it would cost us this year, and we have to act on this before December 31st, they didn't give us much time, but the amount of the first year of this program is $89.76. We had budgeted in our $8,976. We had budgeted $9,300 for replacement in our operations, so it's somewhat of a wash this year. Moving forward, we would have been budgeting a number close to the 4 years at $12,276 for the continued replacement of these others, because as they get into 10, 11, 12 years, they're just, when they crash, there's electronics in it, and you can't fix it. So the police commission agreed and made recommendations last week to make purchases under this 5-year agreement, which includes $8,976 the first year and $12,276 in capital for the next 4 years. The other advantage is, or just it's kind of moving it from one to the other, you won't see in the operations budget this year any cost for taser replacement, because we're locked down for 5 years. Yeah.
Any other questions? I had a couple. Has this service agreement been reviewed by legal? I know your other job.
Yeah. It has a non-appropriations clause in there, and I ran that past. Yeah, just it wasn't officially fully reviewed, but these are agreements that we've done in the past. I'm comfortable with the non-appropriations clause that's in there, which protects us in that regard, and I'm comfortable with the product and the history of the company. So, if you'd like to wait,
No, we're not going to wait.
It's not the same company, and
so they've changed their name to Axon, but they still produce the tasers. Taser has changed their company name.
they simply decided that they're not going to support.
Yeah, it's a new product with some upgrades. As I said, we've been operating these for 10 years, some of them. So they made some changes, and very minor changes. It won't cause us any new training costs.
Yeah, my concern was, are there other companies and that type of thing? Because as a business practice, it's not my favorite thing to hear that somebody isn't going to take care of what they have out there.
Yeah, well, that being said, everything we own is well beyond the 5 years that they would have normally
And it's
covered.
electronics.
Yeah.
I understand.
Yeah. So I guess at some point they need to make the change, and they decided this year was it.
How many manufacturers of tasers are there?
One.
Answer your question. And the 33 are delivered at once in the first
Correct.
year, and all the old ones are out of service.
As a matter of fact, I'm glad you mentioned that. They're offering a trade for the ones we have, which isn't necessarily a trade. They'll give us a $100 credit for each, but we have to document that they were destroyed.
Yeah, see, there's actually a sign off in
Yeah.
that thing. So
Yeah.
we destroy them, but they still give us $100.
Correct.
It's probably cheaper than to make sure they don't have to have
Right.
them out there somewhere.
Right, and because they're, they want to ensure that we're not using them and they don't have to cover them. There's some liability coverage that they have on the use of these. They'll guarantee if you train properly and if you maintain them, that they'll have a certain degree of coverage for us if there's any issues with it. So we'll take the old ones and
Sledgehammer.
cut them in half and destroy those. So thank you for pointing that out.
Anything further? Call the question on approving the agreement for 5-year capital purchase, a 5-year purchase plan to replace the tasers. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Recusals? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item 7. Jim? 7.1, discuss and take possible action to waive the bidding for purchase of a used vibratory roller.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good.
Jim, you want to give us a little background on this?
Yes. From time to time over the last 4 or 5 years, we've rented vibratory rollers. We don't have one in stock. We had an old stationary kind of roller, but it never really did the job. This last year, we had rebuilt the culvert up in North Guilford on Great Hill Road. We had a 4 or 5 foot fill, so we needed to compact that material by bringing the vibratory roller. We also found that when we did preparation for chip sealing, and when we built up the gutters, it works a lot better if you could compact that asphalt into the gutter to build up. Over the years, all these roads got wider and wider, a little bit at a time, and the gutters just fell apart and had no base on it. But if we could roll in the asphalt and vibrate in place, it gave us a much better job, and we had a lot less problems with potholes throughout the town where we've done this over the last 2 or 3 years. So, but in this last year, we've rented a vibratory roller 3 times. I think it came to about $8,100. If we convinced the
Over
last,
the 3 times.
yeah, but it was in one fiscal year. So, and we going forward, we want to kind of do the same thing. So we talked to the Public Works Commission. They agreed. We had money left over from the purchase of a replacement loader under our equipment replacement plan, and they agreed to allow us to go to the last Board of Selectmen to get approval to buy a vibratory roller with whatever money we had left instead of going beyond the purchase price. We priced out replacement new ones, and they're at the low end $42,000 and higher. But we did find a place that we rented the last machine from. Able Tool of South Windsor will sell us a 2015. It's a Whacker 215. I think I included the specs on it. It's only got 350 hours. It's practically brand new. For $24,500. We have. I don't know exactly the success of that because when we last Board of Selectmen allowed us when we got approval to sell off some old equipment to put that money into this fund, but we won't need it. I took it to the Public Works Commission. They agreed to allow us to buy the used roller, and the price would be $24,000. So I would recommend the Board of Selectmen approve that purchase.
Questions?
There is money in your existing budget?
Yes.
For this essentially upgrade?
Yes.
I mean, you were, okay. And how do you transport this thing?
A trailer.
And we have that?
No, we do not. We have a trailer we can fit it on, but we have enough money left, and we didn't have approval to buy a trailer because we didn't know what we were going to get. So we'll probably be back to you next month or so when we go through that process.
So what's a trailer likely to cost?
Maybe 10 grand, 10, 11 grand. So we still have enough money for that.
And the trailer would be multi-purpose, or would it be specific to this
It would be
device?
primarily for this because it's a smaller trailer. We just purchased a big trailer last year for an excavator that we were undersized for a long time with what we were moving, our big excavator. So we got approval, and we purchased that, so we should be covered as far as trailers when we get this one.
And you're describing this as a vibratory roller. I mean, it's basically a steamroller, what they would say in the old days,
In the
right?
old
I mean,
days,
it's
yeah.
double-wheeled things that go
Right.
back and forth
And
over
by
the asphalt.
the vibration, what causes, instead of being a static load, it's a dynamic load, and that causes it to compress the soil, or the asphalt as it goes by. It's a much more effective way to do it. And that's the only kind of equipment used in construction now, is the vibratory, because you do get the dynamic loading that allows for the compression of the material that you're rolling.
Okay. And is there any particular training that needs to be,
Reverse and forward.
okay, and we have people that have.
We know the garage.
Right, used it. You've already used it. You have crew
Yes.
that have already used
Yes.
these things by virtue of the rentals.
Right.
And if this one has 350 hours on it, how many do you expect that it would go for?
I would, this machine would last us 20 years. Everything else, you know, 20 years, everything rots out.
It sounds like they're pricey to lease. Is there any chance of our making it available to anybody else to use it?
You know, it's typical, and this is what we've found, when you want it, like, it's only a short window, 3 or 4 months, that you're gonna use this. Everybody wants it at that time, and that's what we ran into. When we were renting it from another outfit in North Haven, well, when we wanted it, it wasn't available. So you start scrambling. These people have been very good to deal with. So we found them, they give us a very fair price.
And where are you going to store it?
We'll find a place. We have we're building a hoop house on the site. We've been
One of those temporary.
Yeah, well, we had,
Vinyl.
exactly. We were gonna put our sanders under it. We used to have open steel racks, so we're putting our sanders and equipment under there. We have enough room there to store this as well.
Okay, but this structure that you're talking about isn't in place yet.
No, the foundation is being installed as we go. We're doing it ourselves.
Okay, so it's basically outside, but under one of these vinyl
Right.
roof
Exactly.
portable garages. I'm probably not getting the word right. It's not portable so much as
No,
it's not.
it's not a
it's not
permanent
framed.
structure, but it is, it does what we want it to do. It
Okay.
keeps the weather out.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions? The reason we're acting on this is to waive the bid, because it's a sole source provider.
Right.
Any other questions? Is there a motion to waive the bid for the purchase of the used?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Item 8, appointments and resignations. Is there, 8.1 is a resignation from Mark White from the Economic Development Commission. Is there a motion
So moved.
to accept?
Second.
Accept with, how do we say it? John?
Regret.
Regret and appreciation.
Appreciation, yes.
Mark White from the Economic Development Commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 2, act on recommendation to appoint Wendy Dockery as an alternate to the Economic Development Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire April 30th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
8.3, act on recommendation to appoint Peter Beauvais as an alternate to the Harbor Management Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire July 31st, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recused. Excuse me. 8.4, act on recommendation to appoint Sarah Torf as an alternate to the Conservation Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2020.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any further questions, discussion? None? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None? Motion carries. Thank you.
Matt, we just got in the Boy Scouts request to post sign on the green for their Christmas tree recycling. They're a little late, so could you add it to the agenda?
I move we add it to the agenda.
Second that.
All in favor of adding it to the agenda?
Aye.
And that will be
9.5, it looks like.
sitting there as 9.5.
I'll take up Gary's role here and make a motion that we approve 9.1 through 9.5 now for signs.
Second? Did you have any, let's
Questions on any?
put it as a motion.
Well, 9.3 is for use of as well as a sign. Is that still what you customarily did together? Okay.
Is there a second on Charlie's motion?
Second.
For purposes of discussion? Anything further on that? You good? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? No. Excuse me. That's why that water was up here. All right. Item 10, correspondence, building officials' monthly report. Any comments or questions?
Thanks.
None. Item 10.2, Public Works Department monthly report.
Yeah, I had a couple quick questions there.
Is Jim any longer with us?
Mr. Portley?
He left.
So one of which I think you sort of touched
Tracy,
on
you want
already.
to take these for, go ahead.
One that I was sort of struck by the fact that we did have 3 storms out of the gate here,
Right,
so
right.
we'll get that report presumably in the next month or so.
Yep.
So that's going to come in. There was one comment about a oil spill cleanup on Valley Shores. I was just curious from where, and if there was if that was from something the town did or something that was somebody else. Is there a chargeback if it is from some other source? If it's some private business or someone else? So I just had a question about where that came from and what the economic consequences of that are.
Gotcha.
Maybe you can report back to the next meeting, just so we know.
Right. Tracy, you have it? Thank you.
And then the other one, interestingly, in the ongoing and completed projects, item 6, the public report, public notice here. It says Cilantro's parking area. Is that the parking spaces in front?
Directly behind Solange.
Behind and that's town property?
No, that is private property. However, it was determined that in the building of the overall parking lot, the project that is behind.
Yes.
Well, sort of central to all the stores behind Whitfield Street, that the runoff created problems for that septic system, and the town agreed to participate in the remediation efforts. And I believe it was $4,000 is the number that.
I don't know what the number was, but that's
Right, we can get it
effectively
just-
what happened with it.
So was that area,
Issues with the other area, and we just.
that area was not repaved at the same time, but now it's going to be addressed because of
No,
what's
It's already
It's
been
complete.
addressed, yeah. It's a little
It's a little-
piece
little
between,
section.
just the heights were changed
Yeah.
and things like that when we redid that whole back parking lot.
Okay.
And part of the fix, agreement was made to help out with this project. Because
Got
they
it.
redid their septic and everything all at once, which we didn't participate in.
Right.
That was part of the discussion. But we agreed to help out with some of the final grading and that type of thing, because there were runoff issues.
Okay. Well,
Was
thanks
anyone-
for that historical background.
Was anyone else affected, if you recall, or just that one spot?
Just the one spot. They're raised behind the marketplace. It
Yeah.
was raised, there was a curb and stuff.
Item 11, committee reports. I think we talked briefly a couple of weeks ago about taking a look to see if you had specific boards or commissions that you might like to represent. I know it's the holiday season. We can wait until January to do that again. I'm sure it wasn't the top of everybody's priority list. All right. Item 12, old business, 12.1, discussion related to the first Selectmen Town Engineer meeting with the Connecticut Department of Transportation on December 11th. Jim Portley and I went up to meet with the folks at Condot to talk about a couple of projects. As they included Shoreline Greenway Trail, included the lot zip project for the road widening on Nut Plains, and also discussion about the alternative transportation grant. Let me take them in the order in which we talked about them. The lot zip project is very possibly in jeopardy in terms of the funding for LOTSIP is most likely in jeopardy at this point. The state of Connecticut, owing to some of the financial concerns that they are experiencing, reduced the available amount of LOTSIP money by nearly 50%. So it went from about 1.5 billion down to 700, over 50%, down to about 700 million. Largely related to the requirement to keep cash available in the CONDOT program accounts to meet bond covenants, or to ensure that they'd be able to make, to be able to issue bonds. So because that project has not been fully approved by the state, at this point it is appearing as if we probably will not get that funding. Updates to follow on that. On the alternative transportation grant, which I think is largely known as the Nut Plains Pathway, there was discussion relative to the use of that. They are completely familiar with the fact that this has created a significant amount of discussion in our community. In fact, they were as aware of it as I was. And they understand at this point that we are not prepared to act on the use of the alternative transportation grant for the Nut Plains Pathway. They did, however, say that there are very specific alternatives that could be included in the use of that fund, specifically for any portion of sidewalks along that route. And there were actually two routes that were described in the original transportation plan. One was Nut Plains and one was Little Meadow up through the area. So they indicated that we could, over time, develop potential proposals for use of that alternative transportation money, but it did not have to be exclusively for what was described as the pathway. And the third piece was the Shoreline Greenway Trail, and they were specifically requesting if we had made a decision related to whether we were going to use that money or not. I had with me at the time the meeting minutes from the last Board of Selectmen meeting, where, well, maybe not the last that they addressed it, but the September 5th, 2017 meeting, where the board did not act on providing a separate or another informational meeting to move forward with the Shoreline Greenway Trail. And I'll quote from the minutes: Mr. Portley said to the board, if there's no path forward on the Shoreline Greenway Trail, he will advise the DOT they are not going forward, and the town will likely lose those funds. And it was my understanding that the board basically agreed with Mr. Portley at that point. In my position, my representation to them was that was consistent with my thinking, that at this point the town is not prepared to utilize the Shoreline Greenway funds. I've also been made aware that the Shoreline Greenway Trail folks are looking, if we're not going to move on it, they're looking to release that money so that it can be used in other areas of their trail. And I am, at this point, I asked the DOT representatives to forward to me language to be used in a letter indicating that the town is not moving forward and they can release those funds. So I decided not to do it myself. I wanted to have some discussion on this board, primarily because, the previous board had agreed that we were not going to move forward at this time, and secondly, this newly elected board deserves the opportunity to be to weigh in and be heard on it. So, comments, questions?
When you say that you're going to draft language for other areas, you don't mean other areas in Guilford, you mean other areas relating to the Shoreline Greenway Trail.
Right, let me clarify something. I am not drafting language about other areas. I am only drafting language that indicates that Guilford is not going to avail itself to those funds.
But I mean, just to be clear, we're not talking about other areas in Guilford.
Correct.
That's what
Correct.
I think it's a shame to turn money back, but this is a very tough issue, so I would turn it back with regret.
Okay.
Well, as I expressed at that meeting, I'm disappointed too. I really wish that we as a community were able to have found a way to make this work, because part of the argument of the people who are opposed to sidewalks and all of that, was that there was going to be some savings, and this is not savings. This is simply giving back to East Haven or Brantford, because that's where the money is. those communities are prepared to take advantage of it, and we weren't able to come together and do it, and that's continues to be a disappointment for me that Guilford as a community can't find a way to make something work, to take advantage of things that other communities are able to improve the quality of life of their citizens. I understand the situation. The other communities are ready to move forward, and I hope we learn from it. We talked about the previous board and this board, and you and I, Matt, have talked about reinvigorating a transportation committee to put the plan together so that, while these past groups weren't able to find any middle ground, maybe through developing a plan and bringing all the sides together and the property owners and having some public hearings, that we can learn from this experience, because to Sandy's point, there's got to be a better way to make this work.
Yeah, this is in our brief time on the board, this has been one of the busier topics that's come up. And in principle, I agree with a lot of what Charlie's saying, that it seems like it's a quality of life issue that should be addressed. But in these other towns, any land use issue is so unique to the properties in question, right? And if they have existing rights of way from previous easements, that's a path forward for them that didn't immediately present itself here. And so we're dealing with a number of individual landowners that, I'm not saying you can't get there, but things stand right now, we weren't going to get there. So I share some of the frustration and wish we could have gotten closer, but I understand the impediments that are driving us to a point here where we, need to be in a position to turn down that money.
Going forward, we
I agree.
Bring people together earlier in the process so that we can avoid some of the issues, because the property rights are very real, and
Sure.
and so is pedestrian access very real. I mean, we have a very large investment in open space in this community, and let's use it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep. Agree with all that as well. And I like the idea of starting with a committee where we can be looking forward and come up with an overall plan so people know what's going on and what to expect, and everyone has a chance to weigh in on it, rather than waiting until a particular issue comes up.
Good. Would this board authorize me to submit that letter to the Connecticut Department of Transportation?
With regrets.
With regret.
I second it.
And appreciation.
All in favor?
And maybe, if there is any way, to indicate that we are developing, so if something becomes available, if another opportunity becomes available, that we, we're just not prepared at this point in time. So include that in the letter that,
Certainly.
close
Yeah,
the
we're
door.
considering all options in the future, including revisiting something in this area.
We get our act together.
Great. That's fine. Call that question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? I will draft that, send copies to all of you prior to my submitting it to Connecticut Department of Transportation. Does that work?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, new business, which is one item, which is directly related to the conversation we just had. Last week, we received 5 petitions for the construction of sidewalks in various portions of the town. We'll get copies out to everybody. Some of you are more familiar with these than others. And I'll just read one of them so folks in the audience can get a flavor for what they are. Dear member of the Board of Selectmen, attached are the signatures of 73 Guilford residents who are formally requested a sidewalk be built on Water Street from the West River to the West Woods Trail, Sam Hill Road. Per Town Code, Chapter 241-6, we are petitioning the town to extend the sidewalk approximately 1 mile along Water Street. This stretch of road has many turns and no shoulder, yet has a high volume of cars, pedestrians, and bicyclists. Water Street connects the town center to over 300 residential homes in Sam Hill, Mulberry Point neighborhoods, and surrounding roads, and connects the town center to popular Westwoods Trail. That was one. Another one was requesting something similar. Sidewalk. This is from the folks at Sunrise that is looking to go from the Sunrise area, potentially from the East River down to Goose Lane. A third one This one, this is Sunrise, the second one from a different group of Sunrise folks. A third one, Apple Hill neighbors who are looking for sidewalk to be built on Long Hill Road between Long Hill Park and Route 1. And then another, the last one that came in was sidewalk 1.5 miles, Little Meadow Road and Stepstone Hill Road to connect into the Nut Plains pathway. This would connect over 200 residential homes.
Will that last one perhaps connect to you were talking earlier about the LoSiP money?
Yeah, the AT money more than likely. The alternative transportation money is. Just so everyone has it, if anyone's curious and hasn't memorized what Article 3 out of the code 241-6, the Board of Selectmen will need to conduct public public hearing on this. And there are significant, there are provisions in here that allow the board to make recommendations to accept or deny these petitions at that time. But consistent with the discussions that we had just a moment ago about the need for a more comprehensive look at transportation, the transportation plan, and I think it encompasses more than what the transportation plan currently has in it. There are components in the current transportation plan that addressed a couple of these items, these areas relative to sidewalks. But I think I agree with my colleagues that we need a more comprehensive look. And it's not just sidewalks or pathways, it's mobility in general. It is pedestrian, cyclist safety, and I think it encompasses more than just where should we put sidewalks. There are techniques that I understand that can be used to create enhanced public safety by the use of Commissioner Michelet, reducing speed limits, narrowing roadways, which has the capability of calming traffic, which then allows you to increase the lines on the side for bicycle pathways or bicycle areas. So there are a variety of things that we are prepared to take a look at. I have already been approached by a couple of people who are interested in participating in this. And during the campaign, and I know we're behind the campaign season, but I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to talk with various groups of people who, and some of which indicated a willingness to serve on such a committee. So we will be probably in early to mid-January, I think. I will be looking to roll out a framework, a charge for that task force or committee or commission to take a look at where we need to go with this project. And I'm hoping, I've got a little homework. Go ahead.
Perhaps in light of that, because I know with petitions, there's certain mechanic or legal requirements. Right. Perhaps in avoiding some of the turmoil that we've had in other issues and that type of thing, you could have a discussion with the people that submitted those, if they wanted to either withdraw or put them on hold, and with the understanding that they get folded into this transportation committee, commission, or whatever. So it sounds to me like this is a perfect example where maybe if we get all of the sides, and specifically what we have on the desk right now or table right now, talking and understanding that maybe there is a way to go forward rather than starting off with petitions like this. A petition to the community has legal requirements, such as you said, the public hearing, that type of thing. Maybe it's worth the conversation with some of the people that submitted those, that they could withdraw or put on hold or whatever, and with the understanding that we're going to go forward and address their specific issues.
Right. I have, to that point, I have actually been approached by at least one of the, two of those who attached their names to the who had cover letters I think there were 4 with cover letters. 2 of those folks have approached me, and it is exactly my intention to have that type of conversation. The fact that it was submitted requires that a meeting be held.
You can't withdraw.
Not the individual, because you would need the agreement of every signatory on that document to do so. So
I knew there were legal requirements.
But I don't even see when.
It does not say when.
So, I mean, your point is a good one. I mean, if we're going to have a transportation committee, these items would naturally
Well-
be part of that discussion, not exclusively, but certainly part of
To
it.
Matt's point, this board's decision of what our action is in response to these could be this Transportation Commission or some
Yeah.
other way to address the specific requests of those petitions.
Sue, you were about to point out, well, it looked like you were pointing out, what we determined, are supposed to determine at that hearing is whether or not public necessity or convenience demands that a sidewalk be constructed in any specific area. In my mind's eye, if we have to act on it that night, I don't think that we have the ability, we have the information, nor have we the appropriate amount of input from the community, nor the requisite amount of planning to determine public necessity and convenience.
But that's the
Petition
kind
in
of
and of itself does
information you
not do
could
that.
charge the committee, a transportation.
Right. Good.
We'll find a way.
Anything further on this? Just reporting up.
Yeah, just so that I say, what's your thinking in terms of the process of getting this committee formulated? The Transportation Committee?
First is to put together a charge for the committee with expectations, timelines, what's going to be required in terms of town resources to assist in that, what representatives from the town, official town representatives, in addition to the fact that this is now probably going to be publicized, and the press is here. I'm sure this is going to get covered. So those that are interested in participating, we welcome your input. We will have to limit this. This can't be a committee of 25, but there very well may be a larger committee with some specific smaller subcommittees that address particular portions of this. We don't necessarily need to overburden 5 people with developing this, what I anticipate to be a rather comprehensive plan.
And it's not just about sidewalk, it's a transportation.
It's
plan. I mean,
it's becoming more. It's mobility is a word that people have been talking, and safety is the other one throughout the. And I don't mean to go back to the campaign but I am. But public safety, pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, traffic, yeah, exactly. So
I mean, there's one little accident on the highway and we come to a standstill.
So sidewalks could be a subcommittee of that larger committee.
Right. Right. So by setting up this committee, we are in fact responding to these petitions that they will be.
Well, we consider the
in
use it as
context.
part of our response, that's for sure.
Right.
Exactly.
I just don't want them to get the sense it's being pushed aside. It's being folded into an
Well,
ongoing
I don't
process.
think it should be pushed aside, we should respond to it.
Yeah, agreed. Okay.
And I've had conversations with some folks that are involved in this, and I believe that this was an attempt to get this into the public domain, to get that level of discussion begun, in addition to the advocacy for very specific needs. But I think the folks are aware that there's a larger process in place, and this could help jumpstart it. I think maybe part of the intention. So.
And I know this was pointed out, I think it's past meetings, but the transportation plan now is at least 15 years old, right? I think it was done in the early 2000s.
2003, I think it was adopted. It was.
So it's
started.
really
Over 10,
appropriate
that's for
for
sure,
us
yeah.
to be
Over
looking
10,
at
It's
it.
time.
But the ironic part is there were several components of that plan that are represented in these petitions as well. All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other new business? Public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board in public forum?
Good morning.
Good morning. Name and address for the record?
Helen Higgins, 652 Nut Plains Road. Good morning, Charles. How are you? Yay. Okay. Thank you, First Selectman Hoy, for meeting with DOT. I'm meeting with you later today, and we'll go over some other things. I just want to introduce myself to this new board. I have been involved with the Nut Plains pathway opposition from the very beginning, and I am sort of representing them. Liz O'Connor was here a couple weeks ago, and I guess did a magnificent job presenting our overarching statement. Definitely we've been in favor of a transportation plan, and it is a much bigger plan than just a sidewalk plan. It's a total mobility plan. And I'm just hoping, I think the leadership that you're going to show in this is going to be very important for the town going forward. This is all about protecting our community character, protecting our historic resources, and being the best community we can be on the shoreline. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you later.
Yes, you will. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Don't be shy. I see some glances going back and forth. Is it you or is it me? Please come up.
I don't have any notes,
That's
but
quite all right.
my name is Virginia Fraze, and we live on the corner of State Street and Tupelo Lane. And when the town came through a few years ago and widened the road, our property was affected. We, first of all, our water was destroyed. They blasted outside of our home. And when they blasted, my well is right next to the road. And for 2 months, we had to move out of our home. We couldn't even shower in the house because the water was so bad. So we had to rent for 2 months, leaving our home. And after that, we came back. The town never even assumed one water testing. We had to test every week to make sure we could move back in. And then what happened was on State, we have 300 feet of land on State Street. So if they put a sidewalk, it would be a lot for us as elderly people to shovel. Not only that, when they did it, we could no longer go out of our driveway on State Street. We had to, we're 70 years old, so everybody we know is 70 years old, plus teenager grandchildren. It was very dangerous for us to go out State Street. If you're coming from the north down to Route 1, it was fine. There was much visibility. But coming from the south, going north, we had the front of the car couldn't even get out of the driveway before we were able to see who was coming up State Street. So we had to close the driveway up. $20,000 later, we had to put a 300-foot driveway going to Tupelo, which we did not need or want, so that we could safely get out of our house. So when you do these transportation projects, you have no idea how you affect the people who own the property along this area. And when Mr. Portley got up and said, well, we're really happy with State Street now, it's much wider, we were not happy to have to spend all that money. And we were not happy that now the traffic is much quicker going down State Street. They just avoid that stop sign and go quickly down State Street. The other thing is my mailbox was on State Street. I went out to go get my mail, which I go out to get my mail. You hear the cars coming south on State Street. You do not hear the bicycles. So I was getting my mail, a bicyclist hit me, the mail fell to the ground, I went to go pick it up, and another bicyclist came. So you see, when you do these transportation things, you have to consider the homeowner. I never got a penny out of Guilford. I never got a penny out of the people who blasted right outside my house. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Virginia. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Hearing none? We move on to item 15, and that would be an executive session. consider and take possible action on the contract for Police Chief Jeffrey Hutchinson. Is there anyone?
I'll move we go into executive session. Who do you want to include?
I don't think we need anybody.
He's waiting.
Mike.
Oh, yes, Mike. Yes, sir. Yeah, Charlie's got the motion.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah, we're not gonna, yes, we gotta take a vote, so. Is there a motion to come back out of executive session?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 15, which was the cause for executive session, is to consider and take possible action on the contract for the contract renewal for Police Chief Jeffrey Hutchinson. Is there a motion that we approve the contract as negotiated by the Police Commission and Chief Hutchinson and as presented to us? Second?
Second.
Any further questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very much.
Nicely done. With nothing else to consider, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thanks, Mike.
If it came by email, I'll drop it down.